Welcome back to the tavern. It's been another great portion of our journey where I have obtained a lot of incredible insights and I've understood myself a lot better in certain areas. And we even hit double digits episodes. So I'm very happy about that. So I think we definitely deserve a break. We definitely deserve a little celebration for this milestone that we have achieved. So I've decided to, head back to the tavern and have an evening of celebration. Here I have my peach tea, I have my taralli here, and so we can have a nice chat and relax a little bit and prepare for the journey ahead of us. What do I want to talk about today? So, today I want to share with you my experience within Neurographica, within the world of Neurographica. So, from the moment I started learning about it for the first time till today, and how has this affected me? So, first of all, the question that I want to answer first is okay, so why did you decide to start learning Neurographica and embark on this journey? I mean, because after all, as you know already, I used to work as a researcher in academia, so I was doing something completely different. Why did I decide to change my sort of field of employment so drastically? Well, we have to go back to 2020. It's a very infamous year. Everyone will remember it, and most of the time it's not for very positive reasons. So, at the time, I was working in Australia as a postdoc, and I was living there. And Australia decided to basically, lock the country up, where it was almost impossible to enter the country or to leave the country, and we had lockdowns and curfews and all of that, and they affected me very negatively. So basically, ever since I moved to Australia, I left my home to and I moved to Australia to start my job. I started my PhD first. Well, unlike my father and my other brothers and sister, I cared about my mother and my little brother, and I still do. I love them, and I still do. And so every year, I would live as frugally as I could. I would only spend money for the essentials, like food, rent, utilities, transportation, and a phone, and that was about it. And I saved up money so that every year I could come back to Italy to spend the Christmas holidays, with my family, with my mother and with my brother, and where I had the opportunity to buy them presents for Christmas and for their birthday. So, in order to spend some time with them every year and spend some time together and have some fun together, I would save up throughout the years. I would make whatever sacrifice was necessary in order to save up the money and come back to Italy and spend some time with them. And I would do that every year. In 2020, that was not possible, so I ended up, having to spend the holidays in Australia, and that affected me very negatively. So, it was already a difficult period because of all of the lockdowns and such. You had to spend, every day at home. You could not go to work, and that was, not particularly easy. But then not being able to see your family was even worse. So that affected me very negatively. At the same time, I was starting to become a bit disenfranchised with the world of academia. I was still enjoying doing my research, but everything that revolved around research, the academic environment in its most loosest, interpretation, I did not like that at all. And so the more I had to deal with it and interact with it, the least I was enjoying it. I was having a good time in my research group. I was, getting along with everyone, and I was having a good time with every single one of them. But when it came to the rest of the commitments that you had to keep as someone who was working in academia, I wasn't enjoying that at all. And so I made the decision when a few months later my contract was up. I had the opportunity to renew it, but I still decided to not to renew my contract and to pick up all of my stuff, come back to Italy, spend some time with my family. And so I did just that. I came back to Italy and I started spending time with my family. And at the same time, I had to make a decision. Okay, Now my stay here is just temporary. What am I gonna do, right? What kind of work, what job am I gonna do? And after a while, after thinking for a while, I took the decision not to continue with the world of research, continue, with research. But then the question popped up, okay, it's fine. You don't want to do research anymore, it's fine. But what do you want to do? Because now, as it has started to become clear from all of the episodes of Diary of a Journeyman that I've had so far, ever since I was a teenager, basically, I started devoting myself fully to chemistry. I was studying chemistry a lot, and so if I don't do chemistry, well, what do I do? And it wasn't clear to me, and I had some interest, I had some passions, I had some things that I was studying, but there was nothing to that same level. And I started thinking, okay, what can I do exactly? What kind of job can I do? And I had some ideas all that revolve around making content online, but I was also very aware already that, being able to afford, to make a living through making content online is difficult. It's almost, at times, it's almost like a lottery. It's not easy at all to get to the point where you can sustain yourself through that. And so I was continuing to try to figure out if there was a different solution, something different that I could do in order to, sustain myself doing something that I enjoyed. And so I kept thinking. Now, my mother had already introduced me to Neurographica before. She had known these techniques for several years already, and she enjoyed it and she really wanted to learn it. Unfortunately, she could only find courses in English, and her knowledge of English is good, but she is not fluent enough to be able to follow a course taught by, someone in English, and so she couldn't do it. But she showed me this technique. She told me, I like this technique. What do you think? And I wasn't particularly impressed at that point in time. But then, as I was continuing to think, okay, what am I gonna do? One day I was thinking about it, and I had a vision in my head, and everything cleared up. From that moment on, I was like, okay, I got it. This is the road. This is the avenue for me. Basically, what I decided was to, what I saw, rather, at that point was me waking up, having breakfast, then, working out. And then after having worked out and taken a shower and all that, I would go, to my laptop and I would start working with Neurographica. And as soon as I had that vision, I was like, yeah, that's it. It was clear in my mind that that was the road I wanted to follow. So, I was going to become a Neurographica professional, so to say. And I checked online that evening, and I noticed that, in a stroke of luck that I don't think would have been any more perfect, that an instructor course, so a course to become an instructor of Neurographica, so someone who's going to teach Neurographica to other people, was about to start like a few days later. So, you couldn't have written it any better than that. And so I contacted immediately the institute that was delivering the course to ask a few questions that I wanted to, a few doubts that I had that I wanted to have, them dissipated in order to properly evaluate, understand the course, if it was truly meant for me. And after the answer to the question, I was satisfied. So I enrolled in the course and I joined. I joined about a week late, but the first impression was, quite heavy, mainly because basically, I had joined like a week late because I wanted to understand everything about the course. I wanted to make sure because it was, a commitment, I wanted to honor to the best of my ability. So I wanted to be able to understand what the course was about clearly. But basically because of that, I joined a week late. But basically within a week, I had to study and learn all of the principles, all of the basic concepts, all of the theory underneath Neurographica. I had to study all of the material of the basic user course, which is the first course of Neurographica, the fundamental one, the most important one. And I had to make 4 drawings to submit 4 drawings for supervision. So basically, in all of these supervisions, you have people who are experts in Neurographica, who are gonna take your drawings, give you feedback to raise them up to the standard that is required of Neurographica instructors. So anything that is not up to that standard, they show it to you and they tell you, okay, please change that in order to get to the standard that we require of you. And so I had to do that in a week. So it was really, short time to do all that. So much so that, I had to go back and restudy everything much more in detail to make sure that I properly understood all of the material. And so that first part of the course, the first couple of months of the course were very heavy because mainly, I had, I want to remind you, I started an instructor course having never studied Neurographica before. As a matter of fact, I started the course, I did not even know what Neurographica was exactly. So, there were people who had already done several courses of Neurographica before, so they knew the material much better than I did. And yet, there I was and I had to study and understand everything. So it was really, a significant jump for me and something that, wasn't as trivial to do as, I might have thought beforehand. And so that first period was very significantly heavier than the rest. But then a couple of things happened. So basically, after a few months, basically for every module, now this course is structured in modules, and for every module there was a meeting, a live meeting, basically a Q&A session where if you had any questions or any doubts about the module, about the material that they had provided for you, you could ask those questions to make sure that you understood everything properly. And so before then, for like one reason or another, I was never able to join these meetings. So now, mind you, I am a very introverted person, so I don't particularly like to spend a lot of time being surrounded by other people. As a matter of fact, if I have to, engage in social interaction, usually that will drain my social battery so much that after that I can deal with that event, sure, no problem, but then I'll need a bit of time for myself, just to doing the things that I enjoy, just to recharge everything up. And so that was an online course, and so on the one hand it suited me because I did not have to go to a venue and be forced to be there with other people. But then at the same time, I almost felt like I was in a vacuum, in a bubble, and it was like basically I was going through the course almost as if I was alone. It was a very surreal experience. So it was weird. But then at one point, after a couple of months that I started the course, I was able, because I had some time, I was able to join one of the Q&A sessions, and that changed my enjoyment, my, sort of my view of the course and my enjoyment of the course completely. So in these Q&A sessions, I met the then director, now former director of the English courses, Anna, and she is amazing. She was and she still is truly amazing. I really enjoyed interacting with her, and she is someone I have a lot of respect for because not only she is very prepared, very competent when it comes to Neurographica, but she has an ability that I really don't have, which is the ability to put everyone at ease, to make sure that everyone is fully comfortable, fully relaxed, and make sure that everyone who was participating to that course was able to have a good time and was able to give his best effort when it came to Neurographica and when it came to preparing for the course. So that was definitely something that helped me out a lot, and that also that created some sort of a group that I could join basically whenever I wanted. It wasn't a group that I had to be a part of. There were a social interaction that I had to have, But at the same time, whenever I wanted, I could talk with someone. So I think that was a great thing because it allowed me to interact with other people who are going through the same course that I was, but on my own terms. So when I wanted, which was definitely great. And so my enjoyment of the course improved significantly. But at the same time, now I think it was a coincidence. I don't think there was any correlation to these two things. But at the same time, in a matter of a few days, basically, something within me, inside me, clicked, sort of. And it was almost as if I had got something when it came to Neurographica that I wasn't before. And almost, from one day to the other, I was able to draw quicker. I was able to draw much better. And my reflections were much more detailed. They came much more easily, and they were much more profound. So at the beginning, I was struggling with it. I was struggling to be able to have some meaningful reflections, the kind of reflection that I share with you in my Diary of a German episodes. So all of these insights, they were struggling to come by at the beginning, but then after this, this sort of click, everything started to be much easier. And so I started to, not only I was starting to enjoy the course much more, but also I was starting to get Neurographica much better. And so that was definitely something that improved my enjoyment of the course even further. And so then I was able to, learn a lot of new concepts from many different fields. And I was able to apply them to Neurographica, which was something that I definitely appreciated and enjoyed. And so the rest of the course went on very smoothly. And then we got to the end of the course where I had to prepare all of the material for the final diploma. So to be able to, become an instructor. And there, unfortunately, I made a mistake in hindsight, I shouldn't have done that. But basically, as I said before, for every module of the course, you have to submit a certain number of drawings that are then supervised, and you receive a supervision that allows you to understand where you are as opposed to the standard that you are required to reach in order to become an instructor. And so to understand what kind of modifications you need to make to the drawings in order to make sure that they are up to the standard that you are required. And instead of applying all of these changes, as soon as I received the supervision, I was waiting because basically at the time I was still, under the false impression, unfortunately, at the time I still had that thought, I don't have that anymore, that basically, every supervision was almost like a personal attack. Not a personal attack in the sense of, oh, how dare they criticize me now? They are wrong, how dare they criticize me? No. It was more so a matter of, every criticism basically became another confirmation of, yeah, you're not worth it. Yeah, you're not cut for this. So, the kind of negative voice that I've also already described in one of my episodes of Diary of a Journeyman. So you already know what I'm talking about. And so that caused me to leave all of the supervisions until the very end. And so at the end, in the last month, I had to work like a madman in order to, make all of the drawings, make all of the changes, and make sure that I prepared all of the material, in order to graduate within the deadlines. So I managed to do that. It wasn't easy. I had to work very hard for it, but I managed to do that, and so I became an instructor. Of course, that issue, was present at the time. That issue of, having these sort of feeling like personal attacks. I worked on it a lot through the course, and so if you want, I have a suggestion for you. It's not mandatory, but if you want, let me know in the comments because I think it's very interesting. If you want, every once in a while, like every 3-4 months, I don't know, I could have a special episode, a special video, where I take one of the drawings that I made during the instructor course and I share with you the reflection I got there, because there I work on different topics that I'm working now, because of course I was a different person back then than I am now. And also you can see the evolution of my sort of ability both to draw Neurographica and to understand myself from before to now. Of course, now I don't claim to be I don't claim to draw Neurographica perfectly. I don't claim to be perfect. Far from it. But from there to now, I still have made, I think I still have made a lot of progresses. So if you want, this is a suggestion. Let me know in the comments if it's something that interests you. I could take one of my drawings from back then and share my reflection with you, similar to how I do in Diary of a Journeyman. So let me know. But then anyway, I became an instructor, which was very cool. And at the time, while I was finishing the course, I was also starting to think, okay, now that I'm going to become an instructor soon, how am I going to present myself as an instructor? How am I going to advertise myself, and the courses that I teach? How can I attract new students, new customers? And that was a very good question to ask, especially because I tend to enjoy, rather than doing what other people are doing, I always want to find my own personal perspective, my own personal road to follow, my own personal way of, in this case, advertising myself. And so back then, while I was thinking about how to, go about presenting myself through social media, of course, then the idea that is behind 4Body Journey channel, so the idea that is behind this project came up. So we're talking about almost a year and a half ago. And unfortunately then, there were some other circumstances that came up that did not allow me to pursue that idea right from the very beginning. But at the same time, I just put it on hold. And then this year I started the YouTube channel, and I started, recording the videos for you to enjoy and to show you what Neurographica can do for you. So it was very interesting how already back then I had already created this idea that I believed in a lot at the time, that I still believe in a lot, that I want to present to as many people as possible, but that now I am bringing it to fruition. So I'm very happy about that. And so I became an instructor, and shortly after like a couple of months, I also became a supervisor. So basically in the following instructor course, basically I became a supervisor. So I was able to experience the same course, this time from a different perspective. I wasn't the student who was learning the material, who was submitting the drawings for supervision. I was the one who was providing the supervision. So I was able to understand much more clearly what are the things that the students like and don't like, what are the things that the student understand better and struggle to understand more. So it gave me a great perspective on how I can tailor sort of the way I present the material in order for the students to have the best possible experience, to understand the material better, and to be able to get the most out of the courses that I present. So in a way, that was a great lesson for me to learn. So definitely something that I feel very positively about. And so, to conclude everything, my experience in the instructor course has been, overwhelmingly positive. I've been very happy about it. I'm very happy that I chose to, undertake this journey, because basically, sure, Neurographic is not the only tool that could have allowed me to, have this kind of journey, but I went from a guy who did not know what he wanted to do, from a guy who had no clue how to structure his future, to a guy who has an idea, the 4Body Journey idea, that I have this idea that I want to bring to fruition, that I want to bring to as many people as possible, and that I want to make a living, I want to make a living from. And I am having this journey of development that I started when I started learning Neurographica, but I hadn't started before I started the course. So there's this change as well. And so overall, my experience with the course has been extremely positive. I am very happy that I chose to undertake this journey, because it has allowed me to gain a precise purpose. Sure, I had a purpose before as well, but it was much more abstract, much more, hand wavy. Now it's much more clear. Now I have this project, it's a very clear idea. And so I'm very happy that I chose to undertake this sort of journey, because it has really allowed me to grow and to mature and to sort of understand what I want to do with my life. So, maybe 30 years from now, I might not still be doing this, or maybe I am, who knows. But overall, I'm very happy. I have next to no regrets for the kind of journey that I undertook. So I'm very happy about it. And I would say this about sums it. So, if you have any other questions or doubts, or, want to know everything else, about this journey of mine, feel free to ask it in the comments. Within certain limits, of course, I'm gonna answer to all of your questions. And with this being said, I think we can, conclude this little chat. I'm gonna continue enjoying my drinks and my food, and I suggest you do the same so that you can, rest up properly, because the next step of our journey is ahead of us, and I want to make sure that we are all, in the best possible conditions to continue. We have done a great job. I've done a great job. You have done a great job with our journey so far. And I want to make sure we continue here and we do even better than that. So by all means, I think we should all rest up as much as we can. With this being said, thank you very much for staying with me and having a chat with me and sharing all of these wonderful food and drinks with me. So with this being said, thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, you're still here. I'm very happy to see that. If you want, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, or you can open this playlist that contain all of the episodes of this series, or you can watch this video. I'm sure you're gonna like that. The choice is yours. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.